Hello and welcome to Helluva Podcast. I'm Audie.
And I'm Alex, the O is silent.
And we're going to talk about unhappy campers.
Yes, so before we get into that, we have some business to do. So the most recent episode that is out right now is Season 2, Episode 9, Apology Tour. And the most recent short is the Helluva Short 2, Antarctica. Yeah, just so you know what we're pulling from.
Next episode that will be released is Season 2, Episode 10, Ghost Fuckers, releasing in October, probably around Halloween.
We've had a lot of people, I know we've been saying this every episode, but we've actually had quite an influx, like 4 or 5 of you, reach out, maybe not since the last episode, but more recently, on Instagram, saying that you like the podcast, which is very sweet. But then also a few of you have given theories, and I don't think we've, said, you can tell us your theories, flat out, and you definitely can. We've been loving reading those, and thank you to the few that did reach out and say, hey, here's my theories. We really enjoyed reading them, so yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, you can.
Yeah, and we might even give you a shout-out if we get to the episode that you're theorizing about.
Yeah, if we use the theory, if we discuss it. So yeah, there's a chance to get a shout-out there.
Yeah. We also still have Helluva Podcast stickers available on our Big Cartel, which you can find through the link in our link tree on our Instagram at AA Discussions.
Yes, and we'll probably say that all back at you again at the end. But
more on all the links and stuff at the end.
Yes, but we do still have stickers available. They come with a handwritten note from us with little doodles of the characters from the show. They're only $3, $5 if you need international shipping. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, into the episode.
We don't like this one.
We don't like this one. It's one of our least favorite episodes overall.
Yeah.
It has a lot of issues.
Yes.
I will say at least for me personally, upon re-watching it really analyzing it for writing the notes for this episode, I do really like the Blitz and Barbie stuff in this episode.
Yes.
But everything else sucks.
Yeah, I think even upon a rewatch, a lot of the Millie and Moxie stuff, you can at least get more of a sense of what they're going for.
Yeah.
But, when this episode first came out, and after waiting, months, in between Western Energy and this one, and being all excited, and then watching this one, and it just really fell flat, and still falls flat. It's definitely a skippable one in the grand scheme of the show, in terms of enjoyment, which is a shame, because the Blitz and Barbie stuff is very important narratively.
I really wish it wasn't in this episode.
Yeah. They very clearly needed a B plot, although Blitz and Barbie are kind of the B plot for most of this episode, so it doesn't make much sense, but we'll get into all of our specific qualms throughout.
Yep.
But there is some good choices in terms of the cutting and the editing and the pacing of this episode. The balancing of the two plots is done pretty well. Yeah,
it's cut really similarly to Western Energy in the way that we have a little snippet of this set of characters and a little snippet of this set of characters, and I think that's kind of a theme up until the next 2 episodes don't really do this, because they're the fizz heavy ones. Yes. But that's kind of a theme of Season 2, and I think that was something that lacked a lot in Season 1. Yeah. Pacing was really clunky, yeah.
With the notable exception of Truth Seekers, which is one of the highlights of Season 1, so yeah, that makes sense.
But then also the difference between this one and Western Energy editing-wise is that these stories don't really relate to each other.
Yeah.
In Western Energy, they're very much parallels every time they cut, or most of the times they cut. This one, not so much, so I think it makes it a little weaker than Western Energy.
Yeah, Western Energy, the B plot with Blitz and Luna is definitely a lot more casual and silly, but also thematically really links up to the A plot. So yeah, this episode doesn't do that as well.
Yeah. Also, just so you're aware, we might talk a little fast and we might jump around a lot more than we normally do. I know this is normally a laid back podcast, but we have 10 pages of notes and we don't like this episode. Yeah. Of Helluva Boss, so we're trying to do one episode about it.
Yeah, we don't want to spend 2 podcast episodes talking about this. And also, full transparency, it's 5 p.m. on Sunday. Our episodes usually come out at noon on Sunday, so
we had a really crazy weekend, and we have something tomorrow as well, so we're trying to get it out.
We were in New York City the past week. We've been busy bees, but we're doing our best.
Yes. All right, so the opening of this episode, one of the first things we learn is that Barbie was canonically in rehab, and that is interesting because Veronica had made a joke about her being in rehab, but that wasn't a joke. Yes, she was actually in rehab.
That was something we discussed way back with Spring Broken. We were now that seems real, but it could be a joke. We just didn't know because Veronica was also just being a bitch. Yeah. /pause. Yeah. Love her. Yeah. Blitz calls Barbie Barb, like, casually.
Yeah.
Refers to her, which is sweet. And, yeah, especially because, you know, we do learn in this episode their relationship's not that great, but he, like, still has this nickname he uses for her.
And I think also, like, the fact, like, that shows that they were close at one point, at
yes.
least.
Yeah. He also literally gets tased.
Yeah.
And then just gets up.
Yeah, he gets tased, he yells, and then gets up, like, maybe 3 seconds later. Yeah. And is just completely normal and has a conversation. Like, what shit has this girl been through?
Yeah, we have down, like, bro's got pain tolerance out the wazoo, probably trauma-related. And, like, that's all true. But also, in Murder Family, he does get shot in the arm.
Yeah.
And is just running around with a hole in his arm. So it's
that can also count as being trauma related, though, getting shot at your job.
Yes, that's true. But I'm willing to guess it's a mix of, like, trauma, cartoon exaggeration, and maybe just demons having general higher tolerance for pain. And because, I don't know, people do die in hell. I still don't really understand what that means, though. So I feel like it's probably harder to die in hell.
Also, we've seen, like, other people get injured, you know? And be, like, in pain. But Blitz just gets hurt and is like, la la la.
Yeah. Like, granted, Stolas really gets put through the ringer in Western Energy. But, like, Blitz gets a hole all the way through his arm and is just walking around.
He has a sling. He doesn't bandage it up, does he?
No! Yeah. Hard pivot. Nurse Pussy Lips goes crazy.
So the first bullet point I have under Nurse Pussy Lips goes crazy is that the sinners' bodies represent how they died, which is a true fact.
That's true.
Especially in, like, Has-Been, we learn a lot about that.
Yeah.
So I ate a lot of pussy.
Died via pussy. I don't know.
Yeah, died eating pussy. What a way to go.
Yeah.
Suffocating eating pussy.
Yeah.
The note does have... How do you explain that emoji?
The, just mouth kind of jaw drop emoji, just shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for her, I guess.
Yeah.
She also calls Blitz the deadbeat in like reference to his relationship with Barbie, which is crazy because deadbeat's usually a term reserved for, like, parents. You mostly hear it with dads. And so it puts a lot of pressure on Blitz to be taking care of Barbie, even though he's her brother. We don't even know if he's an older brother. Like, they're called imp twins in their act, which might not be
true,
Might not be true, but
I've been talking about them as twins in the entire notes, but yeah, you're right. It might not necessarily be actually age, like, the same, but they're definitely close in age.
Yeah, like, he might, even if he is older, he doesn't seem to be a lot older.
Yeah.
So, homie parentified.
I wrote homie parentified?
Homie parentified. Yeah. We know he has a history of, like, protecting people, notably Fizz.
We see that in, not Oops, the other one, right? Or is it Oops?
It's Oops.
It's Oops.
Yeah, the flashback at the start of Oops. No.
Yeah, that's at the start of Mammon, no?
I don't remember.
One of the 2 episodes coming up, there's the flashback where they're teens and Blitz is protecting Fizz against that creep.
Yes.
And then we also hear, like, that he protected him against creeps trying to creep into his dressing room and stuff, like, multiple times.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely a role that he's used to taking on. So it kind of implies that he, at least at some point, had this kind of caregiver role, but with Barbie.
Yeah.
And then that raises the question of, did he have that kind of role with his parents? Probably not his dad. I mean, like, in a different sort of way, maybe. Like, his dad, like, you know, is just constantly making him do shit to, like, help the family.
Yeah, I think the kind of, like, walking on eggshells, trying not to disrupt the family and, like, keep his dad decently acting, kind of taken care of.
Yeah.
As opposed to with Mom, it might have been something more than that.
Yeah.
And I know you had the theory about the mom being sick.
Yes.
So if you wanted to vamp on the next part.
Yeah, just because we've still yet to see any clips with, like, Blitz or Barbie or anyone interacting with his mom. We've just seen her in the picture, basically. And we know that she died in the fire, and she could have just been, like, trapped somewhere, but also, like, I don't know, maybe she was, like, stuck because she couldn't move from sickness or something. And then also in the circus and that flashback with Blitz and his dad, like, his dad says, like, don't you want to help me? Don't you want to help your mama? And Blitz says, like, of course I want to help mama, because he only really cares about his mom, but also, like, I don't know. There just seems to be something there of,
Yeah.
like, she might need the help more. Because I feel like, from the little we know about his mom, it doesn't seem like she'd be guilting him into, like, providing for the family. So
Yeah.
I get the vibe that she might actually need more help.
Yeah, and also, like, it being back down to the money thing, like, obviously, Cash Buxo, fucking, that's his whole thing. He always wants money all the time. But is there a reason why his mom would need money? Is there medicine involved?
Right.
Is there medical care? Like, things like that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
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 And the next thing we have is, did Blitz take Barbie to rehab? I think he did. I don't know who else would have.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering kind of what the circumstances are of that. Like, was she staying with him and he needed, like, he couldn't help her anymore, so he brought her to rehab? And in that case, was he, like, signed up as her advocate and didn't do the advocate stuff? Like, did he not, you know, like, go to meetings with her and, like, actually help her, like, support her through her sobriety?
Yeah.
If he was signed up to do that, and that's why they're calling him the deadbeat. But at the same time, if he's, like, her age or around that, how is he supposed to completely support his sister through addiction when he was probably working through his own without being in rehab?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that part was unknown
Yeah.
about him. Not that it's, like, you know, still fair to, like, put that responsibility on him necessarily. But, yeah, I think it was definitely at least a situation of, like, you know, the people at the rehab working with Barbie, like, knew that she didn't have anyone else there to support her. And so the responsibility fell on Blitz in that way, whether he asked for it or not.
Yeah.
But to then, like, refer to him as a deadbeat, we don't know the extent of what he did or didn't do. So it's hard to say. But it's also, definitely, it doesn't seem like a fair description.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And deadbeat is so specific, too, because if he had, like, actively got, like, broken into the rehab and done something that was bad, I feel like another name would be used.
Yes.
Deadbeat is so specific.
Yeah, and it's such a parental kind of term.
Yeah.
Like, you always hear deadbeat dad. That's the phrase.
Or even deadbeat mom.
Deadbeat mom,
Just, not deadbeat brother.
Yeah.
Because how are you a deadbeat brother unless you have a parental role over your sibling?
Yeah.
And yeah, just, like, logistic-wise, if he was her advocate and, like, it wasn't a voluntary program, he would probably have to sign her out, but after a certain amount of time, they would they'd let her check herself out.
Yes.
Which kind of explains why he's like, how the fuck did she check herself out?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And how long was Barbie in rehab?
Yeah. That's really what I want to know, because I want to know, like, at what point in the timeline of events that happened, especially because, like, I would assume after the circus fire.
Yeah.
But then there are other events that we don't really know where they fall after, you know, like Amazing Imp Twins and then Blitz's solo show. I mainly want to know where it fits in to that, if it's, like, in between any of those things or after all of them. I don't know.
I could also see if Barbie's addiction started, or maybe not started, but developed strongly after the fire. So if, like, they were, you know, living together just trying to survive after the fire, and then that started happening and it spiraled out of control, and Blitz didn't know how to handle it. Because also imagine you don't know how to handle something like that, so you hand your sister over to professionals, and then they still expect you to handle it, but it was at the point where you couldn't anymore. And, like, that is how addiction and, like, rehab programs work. But, like, how old was he? How old was Barbie, you know?
Right.
I want to know the timeline so bad.
I find it likely that, just from what we know about Blitz, you know, not being open about his own problems and stuff, I find it likely that if he's bringing Barbie to rehab, he's not being open about his own struggles, because that's who he is. So, like, I just feel like it's very possible. Like, it'd be one thing if, like, he brought his sister there and then they're like, oh, this guy's also struggling and making that known, so, like, fair. But if he's more keeping that to himself, then they're probably expecting him to be there more.
Yeah. And Blitz is never gonna be like, well, I have my own shit going on.
Yeah.
Or he would, but then they'd be like, what shit? Like, do you need help? He'd be like, no. What? Who said that?
Who said that?
And then there's also this whole thing raised the question of, was Blitz ever in rehab? And I don't think so. I don't think he would check himself into rehab. I think he would be like, I don't have addiction problems. I can figure it out myself. Like, I just like to party. Nothing wrong with that. So, but I feel like it's worth noting, at least.
Yeah, because, like, he is, at least from what we can tell, he's sober before
Queen Bee.
Before Queen Bee. And just in general, throughout the show, like, we don't see any other times of him using or drinking or anything.
But we do know he has a history with that party.
Yes.
And, like, with the party crowd.
Yes.
Which could not be addiction related. It could just be he partied for a little while and then he got out of the crowd. Entirely possible. But I feel like a lot of his other stuff... We've talked about this.
Yeah. I'm not dismissing the addiction. I'm dismissing I'm not dismissing anything. I'm saying... You're wrong. No.
Wow, you're dismissing addiction on the podcast.
No, I'm just saying, in terms of, like, whether or not he went to rehab, I think... It is hard to see him checking himself into rehab, but then also I wonder what his path to recovery was.
Yeah.
Because it seems he did have some sort of path. Of sorts. But we know very little, so I don't know.
Not to compare Blitz to BoJack Horseman.
No, of course. It's our favorite thing to do.
Yeah, but you know how BoJack does that thing... Not that I think Blitz did something like this, but he does the thing with, like, he only drinks a little bit of alcohol a day.
Yes.
I could see Blitz doing something like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, like, maybe just being like, fuck, I'm not gonna drink anymore, and then stumbling and falling like 20 times, but eventually it miraculously works, and he's like, see, I'm too good for rehab, I didn't need it. And then Queen Bee happens, and we'll see where that goes from here.
You know what, I don't know how this would line up with Barbie's addiction and going to rehab timeline, but I could see if Blitz's recovery had to do with when he adopted Luna, because that would have been like 5 years ago. So
sorry, I have theories brewing.
Yeah.
Okay, so one, I wonder if I feel like whatever happened with Barbie probably had to be super severe for Blitz to check her into rehab, just because both him and familially, it seems like they wouldn't, like, their dad was openly an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would have to be bad for her to get checked in.
Yeah.
Especially for Blitz to do it, because Blitz is always like, no, everyone's fine.
Yeah.
I can fix them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that is a thing. So I wonder if it was, like, bad enough where he was like, shit, I have to stop. And then adopting Luna, if Barbie did live with him, and he did take care of her, I wonder if adopting Luna was filling that hole. And, like, obviously she's great for IMP as well.
Yeah.
But, like, filling that hole, and then also does that pose the question, how long has Blitz been sleeping on his couch? Did he give his room to Barbie? Was it their one-bedroom apartment?
Has he ever had a fucking bed?
Yeah, or did they, like, I don't know, their siblings, they share a bed? Like, because they probably shared a bed as kids, or him and Fizz did. Like, and they give that vibe, and so, yeah, either that or, like, imagine he's been sleeping on the couch because he's been giving his room to Barbie after the fire that he caused and he feels really bad about, and then he tries to sleep in the bed for, like, one night, and he can't do it, and he goes adopts a kid.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I could so see that.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, we should move on.
Yeah, I just got that, so I needed to say it.
Yeah, but, Blitz is, in present day, going to see Barbie at rehab.
Yes.
Presumably to talk to her about, like, what's happened with Stolas and Fizz. Just because, like, maybe he doesn't think there's anyone else he can talk to. Maybe he probably hasn't seen her in a while.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be related, but he's had some shit go down in his own life, so he's probably like, who the fuck else can I speak to that's not a therapist?
I think also, especially with Fizz stuff, like, he's probably like, no one's gonna understand why I'm feeling like this, you know, except for Barbie, because no one else grew up with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, I wonder if Barbie knew that Blitz had a crush.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
I don't get the vibe that she did, but, like, who else would he tell?
Yeah.
No one, probably, but if he told someone, it was probably her.
I feel like, we haven't seen any of them, like, Blitz and Barbie interact as kids, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they must have been close as kids at some point.
Close or, like, painfully hated each other.
Yeah.
Which is what it is now. But I feel like if the dynamic of Blitz checking her into rehab makes me think that they were close at one point or another. Just because, like, why else would he be in that position to do that?
Yeah. And even later in this episode when she's, like, super angry at him and, like, cursing him out, like, he's cares about her. And we can very clearly see that. So, I don't know. But, yeah. Sorry.
You're good.
Can't function. You can take it.
So just a small note on that. My whole thing moved. On that if Blitz did abandon Barbie or like go radio silent on her, then Blitz shows up at the rehab and Barbie isn't there and didn't reach out to him. He probably feels the exact same way that Barbie did after he abandoned her, which fucking sucks. Yeah. I hate it so much, but also like makes sense. Yeah, and also another thing is maybe he wanted to apologize to her because, you know, like, with all the stuff being stirred up with Fizz, like, he might be like, fuck, I need to go see Barbie, I need to apologize, I need to, like, check in on her, you know?
Yeah.
And Fizz is probably a reminder of, like, fuck, I'm horrible, I left my sister at rehab, I blew up Fizz, like, you know?
Yeah.
And also just... We know that he apologizes to Fizz later, too, because he says, I sorried Fizz so hard he cried in one of the more recent episodes.
Yeah.
Apology tour.
Yeah. He also, we'll talk about this later, but at the end of the episode, he says that he wants to talk to Barbie, and so that implies, like, I don't know, it gives more of a personal feel of, like, I want to talk to you about us, or, you know, something that you would understand. And then, oops, I typed an H on accident somehow. Cool. But then Nurse Pussy Lips says about Barbie, she's got a job now, a life, don't fuck it up by finding her. Which raises a lot of questions.
Yes.
One, what has he done to fuck up her life in the past, other than, like, setting their childhood circus on fire?
And her mom.
And their mom, and himself, and Fizz, and, you know, everyone else involved.
Another thing that's really interesting is that Barbie is completely unscathed by this virus, like from what we can see.
Yeah.
And we see most of her skin. Like, obviously we don't see her naked, but, like... her appendages aren't burned, her face, like, so...
So maybe she wasn't there?
She wasn't there, she was in a tent and escaped.
Yeah.
She very clearly wasn't helping their mom either, if that's the problem.
Yeah.
Just want to point that out.
Yeah, that's why I'm leaning towards she wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I don't know where else she would be, is the thing.
Or if she saw a fire and she escaped without helping anyone, that would also make sense. Like, if she was in another part. But it was Fizz's birthday, so everyone should have been there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't know what her and Fizz's dynamic was either, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. And then it also... I think we have a note on this later, actually, but, like, she's got a job now.
Yeah.
What's the job that she supposedly has?
Yeah.
That this nurse thinks she has, at least.
Right,
Did she actually have a job when she left, or no, you know?
And we'll get into that because Blitz stalks her maybe hell LinkedIn.
Let's be clear, all LinkedIn is hell LinkedIn.
Yeah. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, but possibly Nurse Pussy Lips just doesn't want Blitz to remind Barbie of her past life or, like, suck her back into the drama of her past life.
Yeah.
Which, to me, also could be that, you know, when Blitz... if Blitz checked Barbie into rehab when that happened, maybe he was, like, very clearly not okay, but was refusing to take help.
Yeah.
That could also be more of where the deadbeat thing comes from, which is a crazy thing for a nurse at a rehab center to say to someone who clearly needs help. So maybe not.
Maybe not. But also, like, rehab is therapy, you know?
Yeah.
So you're telling all of your life stories and stuff. So it's possible that, like, stories came up where she's like, oh yeah, me and my brother would go party all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that was just our life.
Yeah.
And so she knows that he at least was part of that scene, doesn't know that he isn't now.
Yeah.
So it could be something like that. Like, oh, you're a past person who might not be recovering from your own addiction. Don't pull her back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the nurse refers to him as Blitz and not Blitzo. So he's at least, like, been... like, brought Barbie to this rehab, supposedly, since he's been using the name Blitz.
Yeah.
So, like, not during the circus, not right after the circus.
And presumably not the Blitz the O is silent, either.
Yeah.
So probably very much more recently.
It's also interesting, though, because Barbie calls him Blitzo in this episode.
So that's really interesting, though, when we'll get to that at the end. She calls him Blitz once and Blitzo 3 times.
Yeah.
So she also does use Blitz originally.
Yes, but if she referred to him as Blitzo, like, at all during her time here, you know, it's safe to assume that they might also know him by that name.
Yeah.
By Blitzo, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Which is interesting.
But either way, she uses Blitz, instead of Blitzo. So either she knows and she's being polite, which is good.
The nurse.
Yes, the nurse.
Clear, yes.
Or she doesn't know.
Yeah. Maybe it's, like, the name that's on file or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His dead name.
No, the opposite of its dead name. Blitz.
Oh, Blitz is on the papers.
Yeah, and that's why she calls him Blitz, even though they might also know him as Blitzo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Could be absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
As is most of the things we say in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to the investigation planning for it.
I will say before we get too into this that we're going to be doing, like, all of the investigation planning, all of the looking for Barbie, all of the camp stuff, and then the end will be when they're all together. So we will be, at the end of each of these sections, we will be going a little bit forward and then going a little bit back.
Yeah. Like a lot of our Season 2 episodes have been, it's a bit out of order.
Yeah.
But it's just the way that makes sense for this podcast format.
Yep.
Yeah, the dead counselor's design is sick as hell, because again, the sinners' designs are based off of how they died, and the counselor drowned, and so they've got, like, water in their stomach. It's really fucking cool.
It's cool. And they're also fruity as fuck.
Yeah.
People who use he, him can be super gender nonconforming and things. I need to say that before I say my next thing. But I really, like, they were fully like, this character is he, him, but then had Moxie say the thing about, like, he or she or they. Just make this person they, them.
Yeah.
This is a they, them motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah. Millie's got that hashtag Southern Belle charm.
Yeah, she's like, she's sitting there, she's like, as you were saying.
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
She's adorable. There's not enough love for Millie's voice acting, I feel. It's really good.
It is really good.
I love her, the sauce, I guess.
Yeah.
And a lot of the way she talks and the style and the
flavor.
I
do too.
Yeah.
And then when Moxie is explaining that they don't usually do investigations, Millie's just sitting there and she literally has, like, the :3 face. She's just like, for, like, the whole thing. She's just eyes closed, like, la, la, la.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah. Moxie is so excited to lead this hit and this investigation. He has literal stars in his eyes.
Yeah.
He's, like, giving Millie the look of, like, don't embarrass me in front of the client when she's, like, questioning his lead.
Because he's like, the boss put me in charge, and she's like, he did?
And Moxie's, like, staring at her like, okay, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, respects the potential pronouns of the client's murderer. It's giving, like, excuse me, my client uses they, them. Sorry. When they murdered the orphans. It's giving that.
Or, like, when you're a queer friend group and you're shit-talking, it's like, actually, they use he, him now. Okay, anyway, he fucking sucked.
Yeah. Give him what's coming to him. And or her. Or they.
Which is, the way it's worded is hilarious, because it's, uses they instead of them. Cause, like, him, her, them. And then briefly acknowledges mixed sets of pronouns, but only if they have she in them.
Yeah, because him and or her, or they.
Yeah.
He can use, or they can use he, or she, or he and she, or they.
Those are the only options.
Yeah.
Those are the only pronouns that Moxie has learned about.
Yeah. Also, you're so right that it should be them, because it's give him what's coming to him. So it's give they what's coming to they.
Yeah.
Is what he's saying, basically. He's a little confused, but he's got the spirit.
He's got the spirit. And Millie gives him the "that's my husband" look, like she's literally, like, smirking at him.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah.
I know they're both bi, but Millie has the energy of, like, taking Moxie out to a pride parade.
Yeah.
Or, like, taking him to a drag show, and, like,
Millie,
this is our culture, Mox.
Yeah. Millie would, like, be in GSA if she was a modern teen.
She'd be the president of the GSA, and then she'd, like, kill the homophobes and then get detention.
True.
I don't know why just detention.
Can tell.
Yeah.
Can you write a fic about that, actually?
Yeah, you got it.
Moxie is taking the hit way too fucking serious.
Yeah.
Like, he comes up with, like, what are they called?
Aliases?
Yeah. And they're horrible.
Yeah.
But it's like, just fucking kill them.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, and I know he's like, it's in character. Well, I mean, we haven't really gotten to the stuff we don't like about this episode yet. I'd say it starts out pretty in character, because, you know, Blitz has put him in charge. His praise kink is through the roof. He's like, I'm leading this case. He's going all out. Like, I get it. But we'll see that it goes so much further than it needs to.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it feels out of character, but it's not done well.
This episode made me really mad at Moxie.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like normally that's not the role Moxie's supposed to have. And if it is in character, because I agree, it's not, like, completely out of character.
Yeah.
If it is in character, then we need to address that. Moxie either A, needs to work on that, or B, is shitty. Yeah,
because it's like, yeah, your characters should have flaws, obviously. And so, if he's, you know, I'd say, like, as far as flaws go, if this is one of Moxie's, then, yeah, it is kind of in line with what we know about him.
Yeah.
But I just think the greater context of this episode, and we'll get to all of this, but it's just, it doesn't really, what things that they're trying to say aren't said well.
Yeah, I think also the flaw is kind of given as, like, he's not supportive of his wife, and that's his flaw. But the flaw in this episode is that he's misogynistic. So that's a whole thing, and we will get more into that.
Yeah, and also, like, he is supportive of his wife. Like, that's not, you know, like, I mean, he's not. Like,
in this episode specifically, but generally,
like, they're each other's whole world.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's weird that there's absolutely no give from him in this episode. I feel they went a little too far.
Yeah, and, like, I get, like, we just had X's and O's, like, homie got fucking issues, and we understand that, and we know that. Yeah. And that's probably what they were trying to highlight here, is, like, kind of some of the issues from his dad and stuff, but it did feel like you can't have a character that normally gives into everything and not give into anything. Yeah. So...
yeah, it's too hard of a flip. Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about that more when we get to it. Back over to Blitz trying to locate Barbie. He's screaming at someone on the phone. We don't know who.
Yeah, he says, why the fuck wouldn't she tell you where she was going? I mean, did you even ask?
Yeah.
So, like, was it the rehab center? Was it someone else who saw her after she'd gotten out?
Yeah. I mean... he talks to a lot of different people in this episode, none of who we really know who they are or who their relationship is to him or Barbie.
There's two on the phone that we don't even see.
Yeah.
And then there's the two in person.
Yeah. And, like, you know, I'm sure there are many ways that Barbie could know these people, but, like, how does Blitz know about these people? Yeah. So, like, what's his own connection? Yeah, and then who ends up finding her is, I don't know. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes here, which is why I think, like, even if the A plot of this show with Millie and Moxie, even if that was done better, or this episode, I mean, even if that was done better, I feel like we should have gotten to see a little bit more of what Blitz is doing behind the scenes.
I think this should have been the A plot.
Yeah.
And the other one could have been a fun B plot.
Yeah.
If they done it right.
Yeah, well, because I think if the Millie and Moxie thing was the B plot, they wouldn't have had to go as far as they did, because it wouldn't have been such a focal point in the episode. But by making it the focal point of the episode, they just had to keep going further with it, and then it just got out of hand, I think, is the main issue. Yeah. And
also, how I'm presuming it happened is someone found out where Barbie was working and that she was working at that that pharmacy, in quotes.
Yes.
So, like, was it someone... like, one of their old drug friends that was still buying? Like, what was... like, I could see a lot of connections, but I want to know for sure. Or had someone just seen her there? Like,
yeah. And then also, the framing of this scene with Blitz on the phone, he's, like, directly in front of the poster that's, like, one night only, Blitzo, like, big top, you know, that poster that we've talked about a bunch on this podcast. He's, like, right in front of it, and it's, like, much more detailed than we've seen it. Like, it's not just a background piece. It's, like, very much focused on in the framing of this scene, and it feels very intentional. I don't think we really can have any way of knowing what the connection is yet. It just does feel like there's a connection between, like, whatever happened with him and Barbie, you know, earlier in their relationship, I think has some connection to, like, his solo show in some way, which we've basically said before in not as many words, but I think that's just a very intentional animation choice.
Yeah, especially if the Imp Twins act happened and then the solo show happened. I think also the, hold on, I'm losing it.
He's losing it.
I think at a minimum it could just be like, oh, look at this thing from his past, and we're talking about things from his past. So I think regardless it is intentional, even if it's something as little as that, but they love to make things bigger than they are in this show. So I could see it being something more like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Then, sorry, you go.
We have Barbie's social media profile, which... at like first glance, I was like, oh, this is like a Facebook or something. We know it's not Instagram, it's completely formatted different. But upon like looking at it, I think it is meant to be LinkedIn, which is really fucking funny given some of the stuff that's on here.
Yeah.
So her bio is looking for work, but the nurse said she had a job. So publicly, she's not looking for work.
Yeah.
And that raises the question that you brought up. What did she tell the nurse that she had? Was it a fake job? Did she actually have a job and she lost it?
Yeah.
Like, what happened? And she also has just got out of rehab in her bio.
Yeah.
Which, if this is LinkedIn, that is a crazy thing to put there.
Yeah. But also, didn't the person in the rehab center said she checked herself out a few months ago?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I guess that depends how long she was in rehab, because, like, maybe that is, like, you know... I just feel like if you're saying just got out of rehab, it would be more recent than a few months ago. But if she was there for a while, then I could see that.
I think she definitely was there for a while, saying that Blitz didn't know she was checked out, and she'd been checked out for months, you know? Like, I feel like she'd been there for at least a few months before she checked out.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, also, I think she could have... there's something under it that's under activity that says Barbie hasn't posted recently.
Yeah.
So I think maybe she updated it right when she got out, and she just hasn't touched it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and she's either just inactive, like in real life, or she doesn't want people to know what she's doing, which makes sense if you're doing illegal drug deals. You don't want to put that on your LinkedIn. Or maybe you do in hell. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And the skills kind of was the most interesting part to me.
Yes.
Because Barbie's skills on her profile are acrobatics, endurance, stealth, improv, and labor.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
So the stuff from the circus is the acrobatics, the endurance, and the improv.
Yeah.
And it's like you're leaving rehab, and the only skills you have are things from your child labor circus days, right? And you don't want to go back to the circus because it's probably full of trauma irregardless, but then also it's full of trauma because that's where your mom fucking died. And possibly your childhood friend almost died, and your brother and got hurt, and like, you know, everything. Horrible.
Abusive, shitty dad was there, just all around.
But it's the only skills you have.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing you can be employable for.
Yeah.
And you've just got out of rehab, so you're already not very desirable, like, candidate for jobs. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a really strong parallel to child actors in the real world. And I think, again, we all know this, but I think that their circus performing is meant to mirror that. I really do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that just as a baseline, like, that's kind of what Barbie's going through, I would imagine. That's fucking horrible. But the other skills, I don't know if you want to take it. I was talking a while.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. Then there's also stealth and labor, which we do say labor. She likely had to do a good amount of manual labor in the circus, so it could just be from that. But it also raises the question of, did she have any other jobs between the circus and rehab? Because, like, you know, manual labor is a general skill. Yeah,
did she work Lululand?
Did she work Lululand? We know Blitz worked Lululand, so yeah. It could have come from any number of experiences, even a non-work experience she could be drawing from. And then stealth is an interesting one, because, like, as a discreet drug dealer...
Stealth for sure, I think.
She's using stealth, yeah.
But how do you explain that to employers?
Yeah, because, like, they're gonna, you know, if you put a skill on your resume, the employer has every right to be like, oh, so can you talk more about, like, how you develop the skill?
Yeah.
And then, like, what's she gonna say? Like, oh, yeah, you know, I have had to be very discreet in my dealings with customers.
Yeah, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that, too, stealth, I guess, could be grouped into, like, circus skills. Like, I feel like...
Yeah.
That's very, like, I would, like, if an employer read over that, they probably would also just think that, but, like, when we're actually thinking fine-tuned, like, what would stealth be in a circus? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it does feel like we're talking about D&D, because my D&D character has acrobatics, endurance, and stealth.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Barbie's got a +3 to acrobatics. Probably more than that. It's probably, like, her expertise.
Yeah, my D&D character has +9 acrobatics. Anyway.
And we're, like, what, level 3?
Yeah.
No, more than that.
For reference for the listeners, and I will stop talking about D&D and get back on topic, my character was also a circus kid, so that's why that is true, and that's why it made me think of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. We said this a little bit before, but Barbie's, like, cartel and drug dealing business has a front as a pharmacy, which is really funny to me.
Yeah, like, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But also, like, you wouldn't think that.
Yeah. It really gives Doctor Who from BoJack.
True.
So that's funny. But yeah, Blitz goes to that pharmacy, quote unquote, to look for Barbie.
Yeah, and he's like, is Barbie here? And then the guy's like, who? Or he says, who are you?
Yeah.
Very simple, normal question to ask. Blitz takes him by the neck, pins him against the wall, slaps him across the face a million times with his tail, and he's like, okay, she's on a fucking job. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And Blitz is probably so upset that Barbie's back into, like, using and dealing drugs. Probably disappointed in, probably more in himself than in her, just because of how he is. Because of her, relapsing, probably feels it's his fault for not being there, especially after just being called a fucking deadbeat by Nurse Pussy Lips.
I think also, like, he's not there, and then, like, he knows that she's dealing, so he probably assumes that she's dealing, like, 4 drugs, you know, like, he doesn't know if she's all the way back to rock bottom like she was before. Like, I can't imagine what's going on in his brain.
Yeah. I would assume it's going to, like, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Because that's just what you do when you're worried.
Yeah, and that's also just who Blitz is.
Yeah. But yeah, Blitz always on the verge of a breakdown. We've been saying this since day
Proves
one.
our point.
His fuse is teensy tiny. And being worried about Barbie, I'm sure does not help that.
Yeah.
He is will flip shit at any moment.
And I think also that goes back to Blitz being protective of Barbie and Fizz, like, that kind of role. Like, he just steps right into it.
Yeah.
Like, he's not taking anyone's shit. He's not, like, he's going to find his sister. He's going to protect his sister, and that's it. Like, kind of, like, tunnel vision on it.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is just really important to acknowledge, because, like, I feel like a lot of people read this episode kind of just, like, as Blitz being Blitz and aggressive, but, like, it's more than usual.
Yeah.
And there's also a softness to him in this one that we don't usually see.
Yeah. And then we also see one of the people he's, like, interrogating and talking to has an Asmodean crystal. And from what we know, you can obtain an Asmodean crystal from Ozzy directly. I believe the succubi, like Veronica and her gang, they all have them.
Yeah.
That's probably, I assume, also from Ozzy in some capacity.
Yeah, I think, like, they're all from Ozzy, because Ozzy also has, like, people that do work for him.
Yeah.
That have them.
Yeah, I think they're all from Ozzy in one way or another, because, they're his crystals. But, like, there's people like Veronica who, like, I think all of the succubi get them, no matter what. So, like, there are certain positions and jobs, where you will just have one.
Yeah.
We don't really know this person's relationship, though, and so, there's kind of throughout this episode an implication of an Asmodean crystal black market.
Which is crazy.
But honestly, a good bit of world building. I really appreciate that.
It is good world building, and it makes a lot of sense, but also the fact that Blitz is given an Asmodean crystal, if there is a black market for it, and he's been using a black market for it, adds a whole nother layer to that.
Yeah. Because, like, if he really wanted one of those, he could have gotten one, basically.
But the fact that he's given one, like, it's in his name. That's his crystal.
Yeah, and he doesn't want it that way. Yeah, it's layered.
But yeah. Moving on to the investigation itself, when they all get, well, not when they all, but when Millie and Moxie get to camp.
Yeah.
First of all, camp I wanna come more or something. It's meant to be like, I wanna come more.
Yeah.
Good bit.
Yeah, makes me think of the Fred 3 movie, Camp I Wanna Pee Pee.
True. I hope it was, wait.
I think of it every time.
Wait, no. The entire camp experience, is that based on that? Is
think,
that meant to parallel that?
I think they're all pretty common, like, summer camp comedy tropes. Like,
yeah.
I've seen it in a lot of pieces of media, so not...
I hope it is based on the Fred movie, though, because
yeah.
Vibsy's team would do that.
Yeah.
They all watched the Fred movie when they were younger, I know it.
Yeah, I'm sure of it.
You're all queers, I see you.
It somehow is a similar demographic, yeah.
Yeah. Somehow.
Yeah, no, you're right. Gay people.
Yeah.
I believe Lucas Cruikshank, who plays Fred in the Fred movies, is gay in real life. So.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But just called that man a faggot. All right, calm down.
Yeah. Have you seen him?
Lucas Cruikshank, we have respect for you and your work. I hope you're
Oh, no, we do. Small side tangent, then we do really have to get back on. We did watch your movie as a group in our college theater.
Yeah. We reserved a public space in our college to watch your movie. Specifically Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred.
With John Cena.
He's in all of them.
He's in all of them, but that was the one where he's in the fridge. Yeah. That was the crazy one.
I think he's in a fridge in all of them, too.
Really?
At least in...
It's been a while since I've watched all the Fred movies.
In Fred 3, I believe there's a fridge just on the ground in the campsite.
So that he can
come out of it, yeah. So I think that might be a recurring gag.
Okay.
But anyway.
My bad.
Regardless. Why do they gender bend?
Yeah, that's one of our biggest quarrels in this episode, and we'll get more into why it's a quarrel, but just why?
Yeah. Because I know we say a lot of this later, but I think it is worth saying now that, like, I believe the main point that this episode's trying to make with the gender bending and such, because Moxie is perceived as a girl in this episode and Millie's perceived as a boy, and the main point they're trying to make seems to be that, like, when Millie's perceived as a boy, everyone, like, gives a shit about her, basically, and she's important, and this is, like, the only time we ever see her get this kind of attention, and it's when she's perceived as a boy, and that commentary is interesting, and, like, or, you know, could be, like, as a general idea, that is a good point to be making, that, like, men generally get more positive attention, women are torn down more. Yeah. But
you can't try to make that commentary while actively perpetrating the issue with that commentary.
Throughout the whole show.
With the character that you're presenting as male.
Yeah. It's not like it's not like they've spent the rest of the show giving Millie the spotlight, or like,
or any woman,
or even if, like, they'd had circumstances before where, like, Moxie was getting the spotlight and Millie wasn't, like, within the show, like, not from the fan base, like, other characters in the show perceiving them that way, then we would have something to go off of. Especially
if it was coded in a gendered way, because we actually see the opposite a lot. We see Moxie being infantilized and, like, feminized, not to say that calling him weak is feminizing him, because that's actually true, but because society's view of women.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like, it doesn't make any... It feels completely out of place. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of like what we were talking about in Western Energy with the R slur, how it's like, maybe this is an apology. I kind of get the same vibe with this, but, like, I would much rather they just actually give Millie depth.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this also, like, she does get some characterization in this episode that, like, does line up with the very few things we know about her, like, from her childhood and stuff. So there's that, at least, but I'd rather they just, like, you know, talked about her childhood, or gave her something that, you know, didn't ultimately rely on comparing her to Moxie and their relationship, but...
Yeah, and also, I think it's really important to point out that the only time we get a song from her, or we get depth from her, like, her talking about her feelings, is when she's actively presenting as a man.
Yeah.
Because, like, there are, like... To give it a little bit of leeway, like, in most of the conversations where she is actually expressing herself, she is being Millie, and Moxie's being Moxie, like, they're alone. But she is still, like, dressed as a man, and she's on this mission as a man. So it's like, I feel like that's important, too.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't be like, oh yeah, we gave our women depth in the one episode that she's cross-dressed as a man the entire time.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't fix everything about this episode, because there's still a lot of flaws, but if they hadn't done the whole gender swap thing, it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Like, just, if everything else was the same and but they got rid of the gender swap, still very flawed, but at least Millie's herself and getting some sort of development as herself.
I think it would have been so much stronger because also that gendered commentary wouldn't be there. Yeah. So it wouldn't be to like we wouldn't be able to be like, you're really trying to make this commentary in the show that actually like the God wouldn't be there.
It wouldn't be as hypocritical.
Yeah. And then Millie actually getting attention would be great, and we can see that dynamic because I would probably have more sympathy for Moxie in this situation, because that's another issue with this episode. We have no fucking sympathy for Moxie.
Yeah, none.
Because he's so fucking annoying in this episode.
He's so annoying.
But that's not strong writing, point blank.
No.
I would have so much more sympathy for Moxie if Millie just as herself was getting the spotlight, because we know Moxie actively doesn't get the spotlight, but Millie also doesn't.
Yeah.
So like that would be a better episode. That would be a better dynamic, and I would feel for both sides, and that's what you're supposed to do in writing. So
yeah. As far as like in terms of like character, like the choices of the characters, why did they gender bend? Maybe Moxie just wanted to do drag for fun. Maybe he was like, okay, we can't have any identifying features. You're a man, I'm a woman. Yeah. We're brother and sister.
Why are they
siblings? I guess that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, they could have kept that, too. Because, like, I do think the thing at the end where they just start making out and having sex on stage and everyone thinks they're siblings, I think that's funny.
To be fair, the writing choice of making them siblings isn't bad. The fact that Moxie was like, what can me and my wife like disguise ourselves as brother and sister?
Yeah, because this is like a summer camp like for kids and teens, so I guess they can't be husband and wife, but you didn't have to go the other way.
Friends, cousins. Cousins would be much better, but not siblings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you go to the same school. Like, it could have
boyfriend, girlfriend.
Boyfriend, girlfriend. I didn't even...
It could have been anything.
But to be fair, well, actually, boyfriend, girlfriend could go two ways, because if they had been boyfriend, girlfriend, either one, Millie couldn't have been so sexy and attracted to, but if they made Millie a man, which they shouldn't have done, and made them boyfriend, girlfriend, and made everyone hate Moxie, then that also could work because of like the appeal factor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, why are they siblings?
I don't know. Yeah, regardless of all of this, again, disagree with the gender swap thing, but Millie is very gender in this episode. Someone's gotta say it.
Yeah. That was in our handwritten notes by Audie himself.
Yeah, yeah. She's cool.
Yeah, she rocks.
Yeah.
And she's so supportive throughout this episode, even though the shit is crazy. Yeah. They show up, and Millie's like, that's our guy. That's a perfect place to kill him. Go do it, Mox. And he's like, I'll piss baby about it.
Yeah.
Because he wants to do it his way. And I get that it's like his first hit that he's leading.
Yeah.
And he wants to at least try his way. But like, if you get to your first hit and you don't have to do the entire plan, like,
yeah.
And they didn't have to tell Blitz that Millie told him to.
Yeah.
Like, if Moxie did the hit, Moxie did the hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, it ultimately would have been way more impressive if they just immediately killed the guy and gone back.
Yeah.
Like, they would have been back in, like, a few hours at most.
Yeah. And it's just, like, not only Moxie's decision to do it in the beginning, but also just to keep dragging it on when it just was so unnecessary. Fucking annoying as hell.
Should have been the B-plot, for sure. I think that would have fixed the majority of issues with this episode.
Yeah. I have a note that says the episode Little Book, and then the episode of Moxie had listened to Millie. Or no.
You got it the wrong way round.
Sure.
The episode Big Book. The episode of Moxie had listened to Millie.
Little Book.
Little Book.
Like the meme.
Like the meme.
You guys get it.
You get it. Yeah.
Yeah, we already talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, white boy, put your pride aside, white boy is a note that we have.
I was really upset while writing these notes. I was so heated.
Yeah. Oh, God, I hate this episode so much. This is worse than Cherubs. Cherubs is just kind of boring. This one
Cherubs
sucks.
is just like, bland.
Yeah.
This one's just fucking horrible.
Yeah. You know we really hate this one because we have so much to say about it.
Yeah.
Like, Cherubs, I think we mixed in with Spring Broken.
Yeah.
Because we were like, yeah, it's an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moxie adjusts his tube top so much in this episode, namely in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think I counted 5 times before he goes and talks to anybody.
Yeah.
Boy does not need to be moving his titties around that much.
He don't even have titties.
He don't even have
titties.
That we know of.
Yeah, I think maybe he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's also just so bad at being undercover.
Yeah.
And even the, like, non-problematic stuff in this episode, he's so annoying during, like, the whole, like... It's also the way he's, like, talking with the teenage girls and stuff is so misogynistic.
So misogynistic. Like I think the idea of it is that he just doesn't know how to be a teenage girl, and that's supposed to be the humor of it, but it's entirely misogynistic.
It's entirely based in misogyny and stereotype.
And also, like, I don't want to go as far to be like it's transphobic, but having someone dress up as a woman and then be misogynistic to a bunch of girls, like, I don't know, it doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good at all.
It might not be like entirely trans misogynistic, but it feels like at least it's dipping its toes in there. I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. It's not the case because, like, you know, he's not a trans woman, Moxie's not a trans man, but it does kind of give this vibe of, like, the idea of a man going undercover as a woman. Yeah. Which... J.K. Rowling style. Very trans misogynistic, you know, theory. And such. And that's not
I think
the
that
intention,
was more...
but...
That was more what I was getting at. I just didn't know how to word it, so thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't feel good. It feels bad.
Yeah. Yeah, also, the Mean Girls call... Which, by the way, I think there's a lot of misogyny in the way women are portrayed in this show in general. Like, the fact that women are either not given any characterization or they're just this dumb girl stereotype. It's... Especially because the show, not, like, entirely written, but usually co-written and directed and produced by a woman. Yeah, no, Vivzy Pop... Your internalized misogyny.
Cut it out.
You
literally take scissors.
Literally take scissors, cut it out. Don't write TV shows until you can figure it out. Yeah. I know it's hard to be a woman in this world. I know we all have some in there, but, like...
But if you're gonna try to write especially a really progressive TV show, you can't just be flat out misogynistic.
Yeah. And it's not like your hashtag, like, we're being controversial and different. It's just straight up bad. Yeah. So, you know.
And also, I feel, and we're gonna mention this later in the notes, but I feel like it is important to note that a random man wrote this episode. It wasn't Brandon and it wasn't Vivzy. Yeah. Who they usually either one writes it or they co-write it. Yeah. So
it was Adam Nyland, I think.
Yeah, and also if you're trying to make commentary about women having double standards to men, why did you hire this random man to write the episode? When he might not be random, he might have a tie. I don't know though.
But like the fact that Vivzy writes a lot of the episodes anyway. Yeah. And like she certainly oversaw the episode as the show's creator and producer. Because it's like,
it makes me think that maybe she was trying to get out of it. Like, oh, if it's shitty, then I didn't write it. But she directed and produced it, and at the end of the day, it's the director and the producer that make those decisions. Yeah. So
yeah. Anyway, the Mean Girls call Moxie's skin burnt and a botched tan job, but then call Millie's skin gorgeously tanned, even though they literally have the same skin tone, which I think this is, like, I think it's just comedic effect, mostly, and then the whole, like, they are obviously not human, but they just kind of get away with it. Like, I think it's going for that sort of comedy angle.
I think that's what it's going for, but also bringing in skin tone. Yeah. Not necessary. They already made the comment about the legs. And they could have found something else to point out. Like, they both actively have horns.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think Millie has a hat on.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, I don't know. That also feels... It just feels weird. And it's not really cohesive in whatever it's saying.
No, because the other thing about the commentary about misogyny and things... is, like, obviously it goes through the entire episode, but it is, like, really, like, every single line of dialogue in this specific part is about it. Yeah. So it's very much like, okay, this is the theme, and then they just stop. Yeah. So it's, like...
It's not done good.
No. And also, saying burnt skin generally shouldn't do that. But a botched tan job I can understand, because, like, you know, like, that's, like, a white person tans and then they're red. Yeah. I can understand that.
But they literally look exact. And I know it's like a double standards of attractiveness in men and women, like that whole thing. But it's...
But also, they wouldn't call Millie gorgeously tan because she's very clearly red. Yeah. Like, it's not... It
just doesn't make any sense.
I think it's trying to parallel, like, real world stuff. Yeah. and it's doing a really bad job, and it's like,
Yeah.
the only way that it makes sense is by making a commentary on race, but it's not doing a good job at making a commentary on race, and I don't like it.
Yeah. And, yeah, it's like, it's trying to mix a commentary about, like, standards between men and women, and sort of race, but
Yeah.
not really. And then
like,
it's also mixing comedy in there, but then the comedy kind of makes it really confusing, because
Yeah.
there's not actually
and to
a
be,
difference.
like, fair, I think... No, actually, I was gonna say, never mind.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, race might not have been, like, at the forefront of that joke when they were writing it.
Yeah.
But also, now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of Spindleport is people of color.
I wouldn't really know. But I don't know the team very well.
Yeah. But that's just something interesting to me. At least because Vivzy and Brandon are both people of color, no?
I believe Vivzy is a white Latina.
Okay. But that's still Latina.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, it's interesting to me.
Yeah. Brandon, I actually have no idea.
Yeah, I thought so, but I don't know. Anyway, not what we're talking
not
about.
Not important, but yeah, it's...
Well, important, but not what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck. I don't see race.
I don't see color.
No, we
are joking. We are joking.
Anyway, Millie's really good at volleyball. Did we have anything else on that topic? It's just very convoluted and strange.
It's very convoluted and strange, and, like, it might not have intentionally been a commentary on race, but it inherently is.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't like it.
I don't like it either. It's unnecessary, much like a lot of this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, Millie's really good at volleyball. That's a fact about her.
Yeah,
I guess.
This is just a fun little tangent. Really hard pivot. I went on a little tangent here. Did Millie play volleyball in high school? And then that spiraled into, do they have sports in high school in hell? And then that spiraled into, do they have high school in hell? Probably. That's where it belongs. And so, yeah, that's a lot of questions. I don't think we have the answer to any of them. But just think about those.
Yeah. She literally almost kills someone, like a child.
It's a running gag. The one thing this episode's got going for Millie and Moxie wise is the running gag of this child just being repeatedly killed.
Yes.
She she spikes a ball.
Yeah.
And it hits a kid. The ground breaks underneath him. And the coach, like, gets up and goes to the kid and is like, oh my god. And then Millie is, like, standing there, and everyone's standing there so scared. And then the coach is crying, and then he goes, that is the most beautiful spike I've ever seen. And then the kid's like, please, I need medical attention. And the coach goes, first aid is for winners.
Yeah. And then everyone cheers for Millie.
And then they leave.
And then Millie does some acrobatic tricks and actually kills the kid.
Yeah, she does an acrobatic trick and, like, I forget exactly. Does it say what she does?
No, I don't remember what she does.
She lands on the same hole.
Yeah.
And the kid, like, falls down.
Dies.
And dies.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone cheers for Millie again. She literally gets stars in her eyes, which is really cute. Again, this could have been a good episode for her, but it's really not. She finally gets her own song, which she hasn't had. The only time she's ever sang has been with Moxie.
Yes.
In their duets.
Yes.
So that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's not only like that it's been with another person, it's that it's been a romantic duet that Moxie is leading.
Yeah.
And then in this episode she gets a solo. She gets a solo, basically two.
Yeah.
Because I think the end one is a little interrupted, but, like,
yeah.
I think I would count it as two solos only while she's presenting as a man.
Yeah. Neither of them are as her. Mm-hmm. It's as Millard.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Millard is fucking hilarious. Like, yeah. Moxine, like, yeah, sure, that's a name. Millard is...
Moxine, I don't think is a name. Maxine is a name.
You're right. That's no, neither of them are names, but Moxine is, like, almost there.
Yeah.
Millard is just...
Yeah, and then... Another thing about fucking Moxie's stupid planning, better names.
Yeah. He's so... Yeah. Yeah, Millie's excited about her wins. Moxie just shuts her down, won't even celebrate with her. Millie even tries to, like, share the moment with him, being like, hey, no wonder you sing all the time. Yeah. And then he's just, like, doesn't care for it. He's like, okay, we gotta do the mission. Like, that doesn't matter.
Like, she's like, no wonder you sing all the time, and he goes, not very discreet.
Yeah. Yeah. White boy, your crippling insecurity and pride are showing white boy. That's what we have written.
I decided that Moxie was a white boy a few episodes ago,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
it's in here all the time.
Millie says, it's kind of nice having people cheer for me for once, instead of screaming in pain and horror. And I think they really could have done something with this episode. And that is the most frustrating part about it. Mm-hmm. It's the wasted potential of it.
Yeah. Because,
this line pairs really well with what we know about Millie and Moxie so far, with him having these more, gentle, acceptable skills.
Yeah.
He's into singing and music. He's also good with guns, but,
Yeah, he's good with guns. He cooks, I think, canonically.
He cooks, yeah. I think that might have been the pilot that we saw that, but, yeah, we've seen him do a wide variety of things. We've only ever really known Millie as this, even as a kid, we know she got violent in the Harvest Moon Festival and stuff. All we know of her to do is stuff for IMP and, violent killing stuff.
I think also a lot of times their skills and, their dynamic is kind of pinned to be gender bent almost, so that's why I kind of not understand, but I kind of see why they might have went that way.
Yeah.
Just because, Millie is the stronger one and she does a lot of the more masculine things, and Moxie's the softer one and does a lot of the more feminine skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine if you're gonna do that, and, cool. But it doesn't actually matter, fucking at all.
Yeah.
Because she, at the end of the day, she's just a zero-depth, quote-unquote, girl boss character. There's, a girl boss, and then there's, a hashtag girl boss. You know what I mean? Where it's just oh, girl is strong and powerful and not like other girls, but doesn't actually have any depth. And that is the category Millie falls into.
Yeah. And, it is interesting because they have, not socially normalized skill sets, but Moxie's is very much he was traumatized and he had to serve, and so he's soft because of that.
Yeah.
It's very they go out of their way a lot to make it very clear why Moxie is soft.
Yeah.
But they don't do that with Millie at all.
No, there have been tiny hints about her childhood here and there, but nothing concrete where we can pinpoint.
I think Hell's Bells had a little bit,
yeah,
but that's the most we've gotten.
Yeah. Yeah. I am still so pissed that Western Energy should have been a focus on Millie, because it's literally her family and her hometown.
Not Western Energy.
No,
Harvest
sorry.
Moon.
Yes, Harvest Moon. Literally her family, her part of town. Sure, Moxie was born there. Who gives a fuck? It's her town that she has a relationship with.
And I understand it being focused on Blitz and Stolas because it's ultimately Blitz's show, and Stolas was there, and that's the only reason they were there. But yeah, all the stuff with Moxie makes no fucking sense.
Yeah. It's a show that's it's no, we don't, it's a show that is an ensemble cast of main characters, but only when it comes to Blitz and Moxie and Stolas.
Yeah.
Very, very clearly and objectively gives them more treatment than Millie and Luna, and
and even Fizz now has a bunch, which I understand really relates to Blitz, but also a man.
Fizz is a side character.
Yeah.
And he has genuinely 300% more than Millie does.
Yeah.
Not even an exaggeration.
I would say honestly even Ozzy at times has more.
Yeah.
And Ozzy is still a side character.
Ozzy's less than a side character.
Yeah.
Even. He's
I feel now he might be a side character after the Fizz episodes.
Yeah.
But Millie's supposed to be a main and she's just not.
Yeah.
And Luna barely has any fucking depth either.
Luna barely has anything. Octavia barely has anything. I feel of the three of them, Octavia maybe has the most, but again, it all revolves around
And
Stolas.
I think Octavia is meant to be more of a side character.
Yeah, sure. But when that's the only woman with, really any depth, and it's still all about her relationship with her dad.
Yeah.
It's, okay. They haven't brought Stella into it at all with Octavia.
No.
And, of course, Stella's only there to be stupid and shitty, so, we just...
Right, because she's a woman, right?
Yeah. Anyway, big tangent. But,
yeah.
Yeah. But this is the first time we get any sort of indication that Millie is, wants more than, like, the killing and that sort of praise.
Or even that Millie has any other factors to her being as a person other than the killing stuff.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing to introduce here, and that's, like, some of the characterization from this episode that I enjoy. They just don't do anything interesting with it.
Yeah.
It's never expanded on, it's never given... Then, you know, there haven't been that many episodes since this one, so I'm sure it can and hopefully will be expanded on. But there's only so many times we can say... you know, more Millie stuff is coming.
Yeah. And there's also only so much we can say, so we can say, like, oh, this is a great show, but it writes women wrong.
Yeah.
You can only say that for so long.
You can only say that for so long. And, like, you know, Vivzie has said stuff like, oh, there's Millie stuff coming, there's, you know, we have plans, Millie's a tough character for me to write, but, like, just, I want to do it right, you know? But we are almost done with season 2 of a 4-season show.
We're halfway through.
We are almost halfway through this show. That's... Even if we get there eventually, that's not okay.
Yeah,
like,
it
will always be a flaw of the show at this point because of how long it's taken. And if this episode was their attempt to dig themselves out of that hole, it does not. It digs themselves further into the hole.
So much further.
Yeah.
It's a fucking tunnel.
It's a fucking tunnel.
This one's in all caps.
Yeah, go for it.
Moxie literally blames Millie for the investigation not going well. And it's not like he's, like, trying to pass blame a little. Like, he literally blames her for it multiple times, saying, like, that her not being discreet is, like, making it impossible to eliminate suspects and things like that. Which, like...
Shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up. And also, low-key emotional abuse. I think it's a little far, but, like, actively being like, your fault, when it's actively his fault.
Yeah.
Is, like...
And to be fair, or to be clear, like, in saying that, that's not a critique of, like, Moxie the character, that's a critique of the writing of the show. Because, like, he's a fictional character, he's not responsible for those actions, the writers are, and that does not... It's not in line with what we know of him, and so... Yeah, it is that bad because but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been written that way.
Yeah, exactly. Like it like point blank, that is what it is. But not it is what it is, like in that way. Yeah, but like that's what it is. But it's like, yeah, like Moxie would fucking never. Or if that is his character, that needs to be shown more, and we need to talk about it. Yeah, and Millie is not just in that relationship like that. You know, like
exactly.
Like, you can't just write a one-off episode where he's emotionally abusive and then not touch upon it ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, no, I'll get to that later. But yeah, it's literally Moxie just completely focusing on, like, how popular Millie is. That is sabotaging the, you know, like, he doesn't want to do things her way. He wants to lead this case his way. Fine. Sure. Stupid, but fine. Whatever. Do it your way. But then actually do it. You're just jealous of your fucking wife. Yeah. Getting more attention from some teenagers than you are. And that's what's sabotaging your fucking mission. Not her.
Yeah, it's the popularity isn't the problem. It's Moxie completely focusing on it. Yeah. And even
through this fucking shithead move from him, Millie is still supporting him. Yeah. When he's not giving anything to her, she's still supporting him. Offers to help him, like, get more popular with the kids. He's like, hey, why don't you sing a song? Even though that's literally, like, the thing that she has going well for her at the moment. She's still like, okay, well, why don't you try this? He sings the most annoying song on the fucking planet.
Most self-centered shit I've ever seen.
And I think it's meant to be, you know, it's like exaggerated comedic effect, but it's not even funny because of how annoying it is. And just so out of line with everything that it's not, you can't even focus on the supposed humor of it.
And, like, I understand that maybe it was supposed to lean into the persona of Moxine. Maybe, like, the whole persona of Moxine for Moxie is that she doesn't care about other people, that she thinks she's the best. But Moxie would never say that, so, like, there could be something like that going on. Yeah. But the fact that Moxie, even if he is being Moxine, is the one saying that. Yeah. And actively, like, Millie is like, hey, I have just gained popularity by being myself. Not myself, but being, like, nice and humble. Yeah. And then he's like, oh my god, I'm going to be all about me. And it's like, the people don't hate Moxie for because they like Millie. They hate Moxie because he's a self-centered fucking prick.
Yeah. And then
Like-
also tying into the whole, like, double standards of men and women thing that they're trying to do here, like, you know, usually when you talk about double standards with men and women, it's like a man and a woman can do the same thing, and the men will get more praise and respect for it than the woman will. But in this case, Millie is the man here, and she's, like, actually doing all this good stuff, and then Moxie as the woman is, like, being a shithead.
Yeah, that's another thing, is, like, he's presenting as a woman and being, like, completely self-centered and snotty, and...
Yeah, like, that's not actually the issue of double standards with men and women.
Yeah.
That's just he's being fucking unlikable.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to make a commentary on how it's, you know, easier for men to exist than women, which is, you know, correct, generally, but they're not actually making that point. They're just being like, okay, look, Millie's being cool and people like her, Moxie's being stupid, people don't like her.
Yeah, it's so cut and dry. But also,
sense.
the way that they're like, oh yeah, Moxie's actively presenting as a woman, which we made that choice for this episode. Let's make him 10 times more annoying.
Yeah.
And 10 times more self-centered and snotty and talk in that fucking really misogynistic voice.
Yeah.
Like...
Meanwhile, Millie's a man, and therefore she's cool now, and she gets to do things.
Millie's
like,
only cool when she's a man.
Yeah, didn't you know that?
Like, it's fucking crazy.
It's insane. How do you do it that wrong?
Yeah. And then, like, I'm sure, too, if, like... I don't think any of the team listens to our podcast, but if, like, if I was to post this on Tumblr, I would get so much shit for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like... But it's right there, and it's so bad.
It's so bad.
It's not just like one little gag. It's so bad.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, you know, the show as a whole, really bad with the way that it writes women. And, like, not that that's something you can defend, especially, like we were saying at this point, it's not really something we can ignore or defend. Because even if it gets better at this point, it's still just bad. But, like, this episode, like, the things that it does, like, unforgivable, you know? Versus the rest of the show, it's like, okay, that sucks.
Yeah.
It's not, like... I guess it's not actively doing harm as much, though, versus this episode is actively harmful.
Yeah.
It's not just, like... I don't... It feels weird to say... Because it's not that simple, but I almost would just prefer they didn't give their women anything than doing something like this.
Yeah.
Because
unless you're gonna... Not something like this exact episode, because this is shit.
Yeah.
But, like, if you were to try to make a commentary on it, and then you gave your female character stuff, that would also be not great, but just fine.
Yeah, it'd be something.
Yeah, and it's, like... I think also, like, we can... And this might just be rephrasing what you were saying, but, like, we could before say, like... You know, Millie is gonna get depth eventually because Vivsy's saying that. And, like, hopefully they'll give all the women depth eventually. But then if you do shit like this, you're actively misogynistic. And you're actively talking about the point that you know is true of your show in your show and not changing it.
Yeah.
That's not excusable.
No.
We can't be like, oh yeah, well that, like, will be fixed. That can't be fixed.
It can't be fixed.
Like, this is done now.
Yeah. And if like, you know, we always say, like, we have a lot of issues with this show despite being really big fans of it, and, like, you know, we're ultimately still we wouldn't do this podcast if we weren't still fans of it.
Yeah.
Because then we'd just be shitting on it, and that's just not something that's worth our energy.
Yeah.
Doing every 2 weeks. But, like, I feel like if the themes and content of this episode were, like, became a consistent part of the show.
Yeah.
Like, that's enough reason for us to stop. You know what I mean? Like, it's so unexcusable that, like...
If the misogyny gets too much, we might have to, because, that's the same thing with, like the Arsler and stuff. It's, like, I get that it's meant to be adult cartoon, I get that it's meant to lean into that stuff and be risque and all of that.
Edgy,
yeah. But it's not funny.
It's not funny.
And it's, like, there's, like, different genres of adult cartoon. And, like, not to go back to BoJack Horseman, which is objectively misogynistic at times, but there's reason for it. Like, it'll have a misogynistic character being misogynistic, and then that character is called out for being misogynistic.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. But when the writing itself is misogynistic, that's a different thing. Anyway, something like that. That's, like, it's edgy, but it's not taking a dig at every single minority or person that's actively hated by society.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the old genre of adult cartoon, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole fucking point of it. And so if you are trying to be in the new genre of adult cartoon, you can't also have elements of the other one because they're so fucking different.
Yeah.
And they're way different audiences.
Yeah. We should move on. I just have one more thing. Another thing about BoJack that really works is it's not always BoJack who's the problem. You know, there's Harry Hippopotamus or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
That guy.
Hippotopoulos or something.
The guy with the allegations against him. You know, there's people like that. But a lot of what works about BoJack is that he's meant to be shitty. And so when he's shitty, we know it's not the show, like, condoning those things. We understand, like, BoJack is shitty, like, you know, we like him enough to root for him, but ultimately we know that we're not supposed to like everything he does.
Yeah.
Versus in this episode, like, yeah, like, Millie, you know, he ends up yelling at Moxie and he, like, apologizes and stuff, but he's a character that we are ultimately meant to like.
Yeah.
And so it's not like BoJack, it's a complicated example, and sorry to our fans who haven't watched BoJack, it's just a very good comparison.
I was gonna say you definitely should if you haven't, but I know that some of you are 11 and you shouldn't be listening to this either.
Yeah.
But
BoJack, like, you know, we are supposed to like as a character because he's the main character, and we do have to root for him for an extent, but also, like, you're also kind of supposed to hate him.
Yeah.
But Moxie we are just supposed to like, and when stuff like this happens that is, like, unforgivable, it's not a BoJack situation where we can't forgive it, but we still root for him.
Yeah.
It's just a situation where we can't forgive him, and we like him a lot less for it.
Yeah.
And that just... the experience of the show as a whole is brought down several notches from that.
And I think, too, if we're going to talk about a character that's meant to be like BoJack in the show, it's Blitz. Because Blitz is actively, like... I will die on the hill that this show was heavily inspired by BoJack Horseman.
Yes.
I mean, fucking Spindle Horse. But anyway.
Yeah.
He is, like, we're actively like, oh yeah, this guy is shitty. There's a fucking party about hating him. And, he, like, yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But you're right, Moxie is meant to not only be this person that we love, but also this character that we sympathize with. This, oh my god, hopeless little man.
Yeah.
He can't, like, do anything himself. So infantilized. So that's another issue with Moxie's character. And, like, a lot of that is online discourse for sure, but the show breed grounds and infantilize him, shit out of him, which I hate. But you can't do that, which is already shitty, and then completely flip his character, have him be a fucking misogynist. Like, what is going on?
It's so weird.
Yeah, and so it's like, this is the writing. This is, like, we can't even be like, oh yeah, maybe it's just the character. Like, this is the fucking writing.
Yeah. He does death drop, though.
Yes.
And that kind of slays.
Yeah. So if any redeemable quality in this, he death drops at the end of his song, that's really conceited. Where did he learn to death drop?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this. You can be a misogynist if you're gonna death drop. That does absolve you of all crimes.
Yeah.
I'm joking. To be clear. I don't know where he learned to death drop. I know he taught himself.
I know he did theater for a little while, so maybe there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but death dropping isn't easy either. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And he does it really good.
He does it really good. Yeah. Then his song doesn't go well and he fucking bawls his eyes out, sobs. It's so fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Theater kid who had a voice crack energy. Calm the fuck down.
I'm sorry, I know most of you are probably fucking theater kids that are listening to this just because that's our audience.
Yeah.
But I'm right. You know I'm right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's such a little piss baby, but not in the way that I usually call people piss babies, to be clear. He's not, like, an abuser. He's just annoying.
Yeah.
He's pathetic.
Yeah. And then, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So, Millie literally gentle parents him.
Yeah.
And I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, a lot of women in life do have to do this. You know, like the toddler husband whole thing that's going... Yeah, man baby, man child.
Man can't take care of himself.
Yeah.
Man can't be an adult. Man needs wife to be, like, a mom.
Yeah, huge... I would say, like, majority, honestly, of, like, cis-het couples, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a thing here. She literally comes up to the stall that he's crying in and goes, "Hey, big guy."
Yeah.
Is he fucking 3?
Yeah, it's so weird and gross.
And, like, there's certain parts of this dynamic that I could see. the thing with this part that really gets to me is, like, it feels out of place, but then you really think about it and you're like, no, I could see them acting like that. Mm-hmm. And that makes me fucking sick.
Yeah.
Because it's like, having to be like, oh my god, like, that's so sad that thing that you really set yourself up for failure for didn't work. How can we do that different next time?
Yeah.
Like, literally a preschool teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like 30.
Yeah.
Fucking figure it out. Grow up. Like,
yeah.
Jesus Christ. And it's like one thing to be emotional, but like...
It's very... It's... Grow up is really just the
and
basis
also,
of it.
to have him crying over that's one thing. Maybe he's just really emotional. And even if he is emotionally immature, that's how he's handling it. But having Millie come in and regulate for him...
Yeah.
When he's been dysregulating her the entire time... Yeah. It's like... Why?
Yeah. And then she even is, like, complimenting him, and then he, like, asks for more.
Yeah.
She goes, "You're the best assassin / musician / preteen girl I know." And he goes, and investigator?
Yeah.
Like, looking for that other validation.
And I think that definitely is meant to be cute, because he's like, and investigator, ooh, I'm so cute, little baby.
Yeah.
So that goes back into the infantilization, which is also a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it pisses me the fuck off. Yeah.
I think the way that this show handles abuse in general, we've had a lot of issues with. The way it
this
portrays...
show and Spindle Horse's other show, Has Been Hotel, is even worse.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, the way it portrays abusers and the way it kind of both, like, glorifies but also dismisses abuse as an issue, which explains a lot of what goes wrong in this episode, I feel, because it's just none of what's happening here is really, like, portrayed, or it's not shown. It's really bad, but the tone isn't giving that.
The tone is like humorous until the big, like, this scene is humorous. Yeah. Where they're like it's framed in the way of, like, oh my god, like, he's just a little baby. Yeah. Like, you can't be mad at him. He's just a little baby.
Yeah. And it's like kind of like this exaggeration, like, you know, he's sobbing after, like, it's like, it's, you know, but it's really bad, because
and also knowing Millie's history, especially with taking care of all of her brothers. Yeah. Like, we see that in Hell's Bells, which I should note was after this, but like, she's been I want more about Millie, because we know that she's been a caregiver her whole life now. Yeah. But she's just this really aggressive person. That's not how that works. Yeah. Like, yeah. Why is her caregiver side just not showing up except for when she's babying her husband? Exactly. Like, that's not how that works.
No. Yeah. And if all of this, like, eventually culminated in, like, they actually addressed all of this and, like, it was leading up to that this whole time, like, still probably too late for all of that, but that would be really interesting. We would
have to reassess, I think, at that point, but at the same time, there's still some things in this episode that just they don't even touch the surface of that.
Yeah, and the show would still be fundamentally flawed as a whole. Yeah, Moxie does thank her at the end of that scene, so that's something.
Yeah, like, growth, I guess, but, like, not really.
No. Millie's excited about the concert. Moxie shoots her down again. Literally. Yeah,
after she just comforted him. Yeah. And, like, helped him regulate entirely. Yeah. Millie's like, oh my god, yay, and he's like, fuck you.
Yeah. Like, I hate to break it to you, Moxie, but sometimes, like, when you're upset or feeling a certain way about something, you just have to put it aside. Yeah. And, you know, do something for the other person. Sometimes you just have to do that. That's emotional maturity.
It's also one thing to be like, hey, I'm really excited for you, but I also need you to put some energy here. Or, I'm really excited for you, but also I'm worried, like, can I talk to you? You know? Yeah. Like, that is also fine.
There's no communication here.
Yeah, there's no communication. It's all about Moxie.
And their whole dynamic up until this episode, they're like this perfect happy married couple.
Yeah. So that's like,
this episode's so weird.
Yeah, like, they're the perfect happy married couple, so it's like, if you're going to do something like this, I would 100% support if you're going to do something like this and then continue to follow up about it. Yeah. And talk about how, like, oh, they seem really happy, but they're not. Yeah. That would be really interesting. Yeah. We have barely fucking seen Millie and Moxie. Yeah. No, actually, since this episode. Yeah. So, they're not, if they're doing that, it's too late. You need to do that right after.
Yeah. We really need to get through so much more.
Yeah.
So we should speedrun what we can. Millie finally goes off on him. Yippee, hooray, wahoo.
Yeah.
Says, why does it matter so much how these yokels?
Yeah.
Is that what she says?
That's what Moxie says.
Oh. My bad.
Young locals, I guess. I don't know, though.
How these people feel about you.
Yeah.
And then she says, and I really like this line.
Yeah.
Like, you know, out of the broader context of this episode, she says, it doesn't. It matters how I feel about myself. And for once, I feel like I'm important. Like I'm somebody to be proud of. And I had hoped that my husband would be there to support me half as much as I've supported him this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a statement.
Yeah. And it takes all of that. We were talking about this a little before we started recording, I believe. Or maybe yesterday, I don't remember when, but about how, like, you know, it's only when Millie expresses her own negative feelings that Moxie is like, oh, how she's feeling is valid, but when she's just, like, happy and feeling good about herself, he doesn't, like, view he views his emotions as priority to hers until she's also upset. Yeah. And that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's horrible, because, like, Millie is always there to celebrate Moxie, even when he does shitty.
Yeah.
And so the fact that when Millie's actively being, like, great and, like, doing things, and Moxie's just like, well, you're fucking this up.
Yeah.
Literally can't let her be happy, which is abusive.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, like, the worst of abuse, and it's not in your face abuse, but that, like, prolonged, that's abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna go on. Okay. Moxie introduces Millie for her performance. Which, I understand the gesture. Still kind of taking the spotlight. Yeah, exactly.
Like, especially because the audience doesn't fucking want him there. Yeah. One of them says, kill yourself, nerd.
Yeah. Honestly justified at that point. He, like, completely drops the Moxie voice, like, 30 seconds in.
Yeah, he's like, the best. First of all, I feel bad doing it. And then he just goes, the most beautiful. Wonderful.
The love of my life.
Brother.
Yeah, calls her his wife first, and then goes, my brother, Miller.
Yeah, because if he had just done that and then walked off stage, like, I feel like it would have been less weird than going, brother Miller.
Yeah. Knock 'em dead, baby is cute, but again, bare minimum. Honestly, below the bare minimum because of how long it's taken.
No, this is the bare minimum and should have happened from day one. Yeah. The fact that it's taken all of this to get to bare minimum.
Yeah, is crazy. Yeah. Now Blitz gets to camp, falls, does Moxie fall into Blitz?
Yeah, so what happens is Millie, Moxie says, knock 'em dead, baby. Millie says, speaking of, go over there, kill them. Yeah. And then Moxie's running over and is, like, scouring and then falls onto Blitz. Yes. And says, what the, sir? There's no break in the, like, audio. Yeah. It's, like, with a comma in the subtitles, but it just says, what the, sir?
What the, sir?
What the, sir?
Sir, yeah. The choice to have these two plot lines line up in the same place is really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a good writing choice there.
Yeah. Where the place that Barbie is at the same camp, so they all end up in the same place. Blitz is so oblivious to what IMP is doing. Like, he gave Moxie this mission and was barely even paying attention then when he gave him the mission, and now it's just like, oh, what? You're still killing this guy? Yeah. God damn it, Moxie. This is why I don't trust you with Dick.
This has been a week.
This has been a week!
He has been looking for Barbie for a week. Yeah. And has not once checked in with his employees. Partly because he's Blitz, but also because he's just so concerned about his sister, and I feel like that's worth noting. Yeah. Like, that's so much concern and so much focus. Yeah. To be just so tunnel-visioned.
Yeah. Also, like, especially when your employees are on, like, a murder mission. Like, yeah. You know, I'm sure, like, he also just has implicit trust for Millie and Moxie to do their job. Mm-hmm. Regardless of, you know, what he says in this moment. But, the fact that it doesn't cross his mind that, like, maybe something happened to them, or if it does cross his mind, he's just like, I can't deal with that right now. It is really interesting how his priorities fall when it comes to Barbie.
Yeah, because his priorities immediately just flipped. Yeah. Like, nothing else mattered.
Yeah. Millie and Moxie are usually, like, he's obsessed with them.
Yeah. And so, I think it also goes into, like, the parentification there and the, like, he feels responsible for her. He's like, oh shit, this is my responsibility.
Yeah.
I have to find her. I have to make sure I'm okay. I have to be the one that does that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Blitz and Barbie is our next note.
Yes.
Barbie calls Moxie a little twink. Who's this little twink?
So true. And coming right after, hey, queer boy.
Yeah. Clocking his ass left and right.
Microaggressing Moxie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, the parentification. You check yourself out of rehab. No call, no note.
Yeah.
And I have to track you down to this shithole. The no call, no note is so parent.
Yeah, that's like, you came home late, you didn't call me.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Crazy. Yeah. Also, Blitz doesn't want Barbie to be on age 8, but totally fine with heroin.
yeah, that was a lot of questions about heroin, generally.
Yeah.
Is heroin not as strong to demons because he says later that heroin barely gets rid of a headache?
Yeah.
Or do they just have such a strong tolerance, both of them, for
Yeah.
heroin? I think the latter.
Yeah.
But
maybe both.
Maybe both.
It's so hard to tell how drugs work in the Helluverse when there are so many addicts in the main cast and also so much exaggeration for humor. You can never tell which way it goes.
Especially because another thing is too, Barbie's selling these, or at least getting these drugs on Earth. So that makes me think like maybe it is weaker and then it works for humans, so that's why she's selling this one.
Yeah.
But also he says like, you're not back on that H8, right? And she goes, no. Or she goes, fuck no, it's just heroin. Which she's just peddling, so we don't actually know if she's using again.
Yeah.
But she never actually says she's sober either. She just says she's out of rehab.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting question as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of going back to what we were saying before about how, like, her only skills come from her circus days.
Yeah.
She refers to her, like, drug peddling as honest work. And then also says, I thought it would be sure to keep me as far away from you as possible, which is interesting. It's really interesting, actually, because implies that she knows that Blitz is very much outside of that life now.
Yeah.
So maybe he was, like, sober when he checked her into rehab.
Yeah. Or maybe he got sober and then
Yeah.
needed to be away from her.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's sort of this cycle of, like, unemployment and addiction that she's in because, like, her only skills come from the circus.
Fucking real, unfortunately.
So fucking real. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a shame that that all of the Blitz and Barbie stuff is in this episode because, like, I want to write off this episode completely most of the time and just be like, okay, this isn't important to canon. I just don't accept it as canon.
But this stuff is actually really good, too. It's like, it's not even just like, okay, yeah, we're getting a little depth on Blitz and Barbie. Like, this is really fucking good.
It's really good, yeah.
And also, that's another thing. This is the only time we've seen Barbie.
Yeah.
I believe, most important woman in Blitz's life.
Who's alive.
Who's alive. The main character. We haven't seen any of his fucking mom except for a picture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a show. It's a show about Blitz, and everything centers around Blitz, and that's fine, and that's good. But then why are the only important people in his life men? Because that's not true. There are important women in his life. Why don't they get fucking anything?
And you can't write off your misogyny as the show being centered around a man if, one, you're going to be actively misogynistic and harmful in, like, flat out, and two, you're not going to include the women in his life.
Yeah.
Like, that, you can't do that. That's not, like...
Yeah.
Vibsy, that's not what's happening.
No. You can't be like, this is Blitz's show, and so it's mostly about him and, like, the people who are important to him. But only if they're men.
Yeah, that's misogyny.
It's misogyny. Yeah. But yeah, the whole unemployment struggle and cycle also ties into, like, the themes of class divide, the quote-unquote unemployed Rathians that we talked about last episode.
I don't think that... Yes, it was.
Yeah,
my bad.
It was.
My bad.
Energy. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, talked about the circus work skills and stuff. And
so she doesn't have anything else to enter the workforce with, and so, like, what the fuck else is she gonna do? She knows the drug world and she knows the circus, and she doesn't want to go back to the circus. And the drug work she knows how to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then keeping her away from Blitz. We talked about, like, the drugs and, like, he's not in that
world
anymore. Yeah. So that, like, she must know that, and that's keeping away. Yeah. But then also if Barbie had to take this work so that she could be independent and not rely on Blitz again is really interesting, I think. Especially if she did financially and physically rely on him before.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would be a really interesting way to take that line, because it's like, to keep me away from you, I'm taking this job, the only one I can get, so that I don't have to rely on you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Their dynamic is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I hope to get more of it soon.
Don't have hope, but hope to.
Yeah. Yeah. Barbie calls Blitz Blitzo once she changes into demon form. I do love her human design, by the way.
Yeah.
I meant to say that. Of the human designs, it's probably my favorite.
Yeah,
but
it's really
the bar's
good.
low.
Yeah.
So
she calls him Blitz when she first sees him. Like, she's surprised. She goes, Blitz?
Yeah.
That's the only time she calls him Blitz.
yeah, then it's Blitzo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really emphasizing the O.
Yeah. Haven't you fucked my life up enough already? Really want to know what this is referring to. Like, what is her understanding of what happened with the circus fire? Or, like, and, like, maybe, you know, abandoning her. But, like, I don't know. I want to know her point of view on these things that we know about. Or, like, is there a completely different thing that she's angry at him for that we just don't know about yet?
Because I could entirely understand, like, everybody thinks that, and Blitz included, thinks that the fire was his fault.
Yeah.
So, like, having that, and then he takes her in and then abandons her at rehab. When they're going through the same issue, and he didn't have to go to rehab. Like, I could see that.
Yeah.
Like, I could see her being really fucking bitter about that.
Yeah.
That's fair. But also, yeah, I want to know, is there something else?
Yeah.
Also, I want to circle back a little bit. Her calling him Blitzo, specifically, just to make it really clear, is so malicious.
Yes.
Like, adding that O is really intentional.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, really, like, she wants him to remember what he did.
Yeah. I really want to know when his name change happened and how exactly it ties into everything.
Yeah.
Other than, like, you know, it's his circus days.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know if there's more to it than that. Like, when specifically did he drop the O?
I think maybe he didn't want to be recognized. And then also Blitzo, that's such a fucking circus name.
It is, yeah.
But yeah,
I
want to know
if
more.
A specific event.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm sure Barbie would know what that event is, so, like, her and, like, Fizz, them more than anyone.
Yeah.
And Fizz is the other person who we've seen, like, very intentionally and maliciously be, like, Blitzo.
Yeah.
So, like, they understand more than anyone why it irritates him so much, and they use it against him.
Yeah.
So
I think Fizz, too, though, like, and we'll get to this in more of his episodes, but I don't know that at first it's malicious.
Yeah.
It just seems normal at first. But with Barbie, it's like, there's emphasis on that. And she calls him Blitz first.
Yeah.
Like, the natural response is Blitz.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me. She's been around him a lot while he's been going by Blitz. Yeah.
On a lighter note, she makes cat sounds when she fights.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, being cat core kind of just runs in the family.
Yeah, which I love. I don't love the, like, cat fight aspect of it. The only time we see her fight, she's making aggressive cat sounds and, like, cat fighting.
Yeah.
But I think it's less that. I think that is more the family. Because Blitz is very cat core.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about Black Market for Asmodean crystals, but Barbie also has one, so that also lends more credence to that. Blitz offers to help Barbie, says, I want to help you, let me help you, please. And also, you're clean now, let's grab dinner, we'll catch up, we'll talk about, and then he's cut off there. We'll talk about the fire, something, apologizing to her.
Yeah.
Not really clear, but we can fill in the blanks.
We'll talk about your addiction, your recovery journey.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what, it could be so many things.
We'll talk about finding you some better work, like, maybe employing her with IMP, you know? Like, oh, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's gonna...
I would love that.
Be cool.
Because that also, like, that is something, like, if, like, that's something he would do. He would say, like, let me help you by giving you a place to stay, by giving you a job. And, like, he would in a heartbeat, it seems. Like, by the way he's doing this. He's, like, and he's, like, begging, like, please let me help you.
Yeah.
And that makes me think, like, what exactly were the circumstances that he checked her into rehab? Like, was it so, like, obviously, probably he felt he didn't have control over it. But then, like, was she, like, actively hurting him? Like, what? Like, is he safe? Like, you know, the you're clean now is really strong here to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
You're good.
Barbie doesn't even want to see him.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a situation... I mean, maybe subconsciously it's a situation of, like, seeing Blitz equals getting help from him kind of thing. So maybe that's part of it. But, like, it's not even like, I don't want your help. It's, I don't want to see you. So clearly anger towards him.
And then also when she's yelling at him, she touches the skull.
Yes.
Just like fucking Fizz did.
Yeah. She says, just because I'm out of rehab doesn't mean I want to see you. I never want to see you ever. Pokes Blitz's necklace, which is from their mom.
Yeah. Not just once either. It's like every single time she uses her hand, she's poking his necklace.
Like emphasizing her words by poking their mother's necklace.
Yeah. And then next time you want to find me, Blitzo, don't.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. This next part, I think we already talked about before on the podcast, so I don't think we really need to get into it.
Yeah.
It's about Barbie's branding. I think we had a Q&A question about it, even.
I think so, yeah.
So we're going to skip over that for now, just for time. Go on to the fight scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Moxie's so dedicated to killing this guy, trying to prove himself, even after Blitz said he didn't trust him.
Yeah, maybe even more so, yeah.
Yeah, after this whole week's gone to shit.
He's like, if anything's gonna happen, I'm gonna fucking kill this dude.
Yeah.
This, like, teenager.
Yeah. Blitz is helping Moxie either to make sure business is getting done or to protect Barbie is, I feel, more likely.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, helping Moxie, like, he is pulling, like, when Moxie and Barbie are fighting, he's pulling Barbie off.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Barbie's a good fighter, or at least good at stopping Moxie, which I think it's very possible that they're going to go in the direction of her coming to IMP eventually. Yeah. But it does raise the question of why she's good at fighting, like...
And why the fuck was Blitz good at fighting? Like he has the more the protector thing, but if Barbie was protected by him, why is she a good fighter?
Yeah.
Like, was she always protected by him?
Yeah.
Like,
maybe getting into the drug scene, she's had to learn to defend herself more.
Yeah.
I don't know. She literally strangles Blitz, which is funny.
It's like, I fucking hate you. Yeah. Kind of really sibling core, kind of real.
It gives, they're not siblings, but it gives, Homer strangling... What's his face? Bart in The Simpsons.
Yes, they're really not siblings.
That's child abuse. Yeah. Yeah, and then after all that, a firework from Millie's performance is what actually kills the target. So she's the one who gets the hit and gets the kill.
Yeah,
it's been her fucking week, honestly. Yeah.
And also, the big thing about that, too, is it's like, she's not trying to take that.
No.
She's very much being like, Moxie, go get it. Moxie, go get it the entire time. And then she ends up taking it because she's just fucking better.
Yeah. And then we get to her, going back a little to her big performance. She opens with the fuckboy face, like, bites her lip, puts her fingers under her chin. You know the face.
Yeah, crowd goes fucking crazy.
Crowd goes wild. Drops a beehive.
Yeah, this is the last bit of the gag.
Yeah, drops a beehive into the hole where she presumably killed that kid before, so if he wasn't already dead, he definitely
Yeah, there's like a child-sized hole, because during the acrobatics act, she fell onto it, and with fire, that shoved him down.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a note I didn't finish. Music is the thing where they know about it in the world. What's it? Diegetic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really intrigued by the use of music in the show. It's very consistent in when it's diegetic and when it's not. Yeah, also the cut between the fight and the Millie's performance is really good. They are really good at making cuts between
this season.
This season, yes. Yeah. She's fucking vibing. She's crowd surfing.
And then there's a fire, like, I don't remember if it's shot out of somewhere, or if she has, like, a baton or something, but there's some type of fire that she does that just fucking kills the count. Like, not even the counts with the coach.
Yeah.
That's in this whole episode, just fucking, he just turns into a skeleton. And we just don't acknowledge that.
Yeah. And then Millie and Moxie make out on stage and then strip each other's clothes off and have sex on camera and in front of a bunch of children as siblings.
Yeah. And as much as I don't really like that they do this in the subtitles because it's not very accessible, the subtitles, as always, are very funny. Yeah. So the subtitles say, first subtitle, noises of two lovesick imps about to raw dog begin. And then the second one is, like, this is so, like, it's so graphic. And then the third one is, there goes the tube top when Moxie pulls off his tube top.
Yeah.
And then the last one is can you say that? Exhibitionism activated.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
excuse me. I really like that Moxie was wearing the matching pentagram bra and undies.
Yeah.
One, because it's funny. Two, was he expecting to need to take his clothes off? Yeah. Like, that's part of his disguise? Or is that just there?
Did he just have that for drag?
I don't know.
No, I mean, honestly, not a bad call because, like, summer camp, like, you gotta change in those cabins.
It's true. It's true.
But
they were there a week.
What? Is he supposed to be 11? 12?
I don't think
He's a preteen.
A preteen?
He's a preteen girl.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know.
Because these aren't just a bra and, like, panties. These are, like, lace. They're red. Like, they're sexy.
Lingerie, yeah.
They're not necessarily lingerie, but they're sexy.
They're sexy.
And then at the end, and this is not in the subtitles, so I did not notice it until I watched this scene over and over trying to get the subtitles.
Yeah.
Millie switches to the Millard voice after they've been going, Moxie, Millie, like, all hot. He in the Millard voice goes, take it, Moxie. So pegging him on stage and she just have a strap, like, or she doesn't need one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah, I mean, it says noises of two lovesick imps about to raw dog.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
And I mean, we've been saying that Moxie's a little trans boy this whole time.
Yeah.
And I do strongly believe that they're T for T.
Yeah.
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 But then what does that mean for the fact that Moxie gets pegged?
You can still peg someone with a vagina.
That's true, but, like, does he... This is not necessarily a conversation we need to have. Yeah. But does he also take it up the ass, is my question? Like,
I think that's still pegging, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying, is, like, this is both. Like, he's just perpetually the bottom.
Oh. I mean, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. But anyway. I like that they're making a big deal about pegging, though, in the same case.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. We're at the ending.
Yes.
We're so close, guys. Millie's full alias is Millard Real Boy.
Yeah, they say on the news, like, Millard Real Boy. Yeah. Which, great work, Mox, on that one.
Yeah. Blitz is disappointed in Moxie, teases him that he did well, and then is like, nah, you're a disgrace, actually. Moxie's so sad. Millie looks angry at Blitz.
Yeah, looks angry at Blitz for, like, teasing him like that, I think. But also, like, Millie, you're allowed to be mad at that at this point.
Yeah, I think it's probably the disgrace comment she's mad at, because, like, that's
mean.
It's mean. It's hard to judge, because the whole episode is so out of whack.
Yeah.
So it's, like, she's allowed to be angry, but also, like, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, writing-wise, so, I don't know. Then we get to the credits. Blitz's name in the credits is listed as Blitz-O with an X through the O, and this is the first episode that happens. Yeah. Usually, like, it's just a single slash through the O, but this time it's an X, which, you know, could mean a lot of things. Could be, like, a full, like, I don't know, fully distancing himself from that past, but also could be meant to mimic, like, the X that Barbie has through her branding.
But I think even if it is meant to mimic that, it does the same thing. Yeah, because Barbie's thing is to get rid of X is to get rid of the branding. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I already talked about that. Yep. Do we have any closing quarrels here that we didn't already say?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we made a whole section about closing quarrels to make sure we closed up everything well, but we've been talking for so much.
We've talked a lot. We've kind of already said all of it already.
Yeah.
Yeah. The show ultimately, like, even if you argue, like, they're trying to give Millie some sort of substance and characterization here, this ultimately still is not really her episode. Yeah. Her feelings are just, you know, put to the side by Moxie's, and it becomes about their relationship and their dynamic. Like, she gets, like, you know, some cool moments that we haven't seen her get before, but the focus isn't really on her, and also she's still not really given much depth. She's just...
And I think if you're going to give depth to your main female character that everyone complains doesn't have enough depth, you can't make her present as a man for that one episode that you give her depth.
Yeah. Like, for commentary purposes, that's one thing, but it's the only time we see anything from her.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, it very
to.
much continues to perpetuate, like, not even in a, like, very, like, we're reading into this like we tend to do.
Yeah.
Like, in a very cut and dry, clear way,
Yeah.
perpetuates the idea of, like, only the men in the show get the spotlight and get to have depth.
Yeah.
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 Is that all we have for analysis?
I think so.
All right, closing business. Follow our Instagram if you don't already. Either you don't have Instagram or you're fucking crazy.
Yeah. At AA Discussions. Everything's there. Including our newsletter. We didn't put one out for August. I think we're just cutting our losses at this point.
Yeah.
We did just fully forget. But September 1st will be the next one. So,
yes, and we'll probably write that before we move into college so we don't forget.
Yes. So go to the link tree on our Instagram bio and subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. You can unsubscribe anytime. We won't spam your inbox. Just one message at the start of every month. Unless we forget, then even less than that.
Yes. And another thing, too, that's in that link tree that you should check out that hasn't really been active yet is our YouTube channel, which will have a behind-the-scenes video on it. It's coming this week.
Audie
just has to edit it.
Yeah, probably like Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest. Definitely by the end of this week. And it will definitely be out by our next episode. So, we'll say a little reminder in there, too, if you forget. But,
so hop on
to the YouTube channel and put notifications on.
Yeah, hop on over to our link tree, click that link.
If you don't have Instagram and you don't have a way to get to that link tree, I think the YouTube channel is it's AA Discussions.
Yes.
YouTube.com/AA Discussions should get you there.
Yeah, but if it doesn't, you can go to our link tree.
Which is linktr.ee
/ AA Discussions. I will type it.
Yeah.
Link.
We'll figure this out live on the air, by which I mean
so it's
pre-recorded.
Yeah, so it's linktr.ee / AA Discussions. My personal one popped up, but it's the same format, I'm sure.
Wonderful. Yes. So you can go to that, find all of our links there. You don't need any kind of account to see that. So no excuses. Haha, we got you.
We got you. Our merch is there. Our personal accounts are maybe there. I forget. Our personal websites are there. Yeah. That's what's there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything's there.
Everything about us bitches over here on the link tree.
We've given you all the resources we can. It's up to you now.
We can't help you anymore.
We can't help you. Go do it your fucking selves.
God, like, we've just given you so many opportunities.
It's really fucked up that you keep asking us no.
All right, but anyway, thank you all for listening.
2 hours?
We had a lot to say.
Gosh. Okay, yeah.
Thank you all for listening.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you in 2 Sundays. The day we move into college, because it will be pre-recorded.
Yes.
So just know while you're listening to our wonderful podcast on Sunday the 1st that we are lugging boxes into dorm rooms.
Yes. Don't be misogynist and
Okay, yeah. Audie showed me something. Don't be misogynists and stay sexy.